here we are again for a new episode of Let's Talk Swimming with Abbie, the fish, Instagram, YouTube. She's with me on everything. We are everywhere to find, and we talk about swimming. Today's topic, yes. Okay. Well, that's one thing we know for sure. Today's topic is breathing. Big topic. Breathing. A very also a mysterious topic because there is a lot of articles out there, and also with this new, and that's why I want it's a good topic as well, with this new way of that they say you should breathe through your nose. This kind of new technique, you sleep with a tape on your mouth and whatsoever. Let me say one thing first. It is not possible in swimming, and you should not, in my opinion, you can correct me if I'm wrong, you should not think about only breathing through your nose in swimming. It doesn't help you, it will kill you, funny enough. I mean, literally.
Yes. It is true that, there's a study, I should have found that prior to this call, that I read a couple years ago, that how much you can expire, so much you can exhale. There's a correlation to how quickly you can swim 100 freestyle to that amount of air. And so I'm actually reading a book called Breathe right now.
Me too.
It's a book, PhD, some guy talking about the science of breathing and how if you breathe more through your nose, through your daily life, all that, which is interesting because I'm much more of a mouth breather, and I actually think I have allergies, and swimming, you breathe out of your mouth. Like, I just think it fit kind of what I had going on without me even understanding that now I'm actually trying to learn how to breathe through my nose. Even as I'm talking to, it's really hard to change that up.
It is. Funny enough, I'm reading the same book. Breathe. It is a really good guy. And I was actually pointed at this by a friend of mine. Mm-hmm. I agree, and also funny enough, when I started this Ironman training, which I do, I had my coach put in some drills where I had to run on the treadmill with only breathing through my nose, and yes, it helped. Certainly, it also trained my lungs. Having said that, it works for, in my opinion, and it works for any sport which is on land. It can help, and it can have a training effect. Again, that's in training, and in competition, even the best one who does the breathing through its nose will start to breathe through the nose because they need oxygen for the muscles and for the quick thing. But again, for any sport on land, it will work. And when you sleep and for your life, and I agree with him when he says you should breathe. And one topic, what he said, you can have a calorie deficit, you can do whatever, but if you don't start to breathe through your nose, it doesn't help. It will not do anything. You won't get fitter in that sense. And it's somehow worse. In swimming, forget about it completely. In my opinion, it's rubbish, because in swimming you need your mouth and your nose. You need both. Mainly your mouth. And everyone who comes and tells you something differently, and this is now coming, has no idea what he's talking about. Even coaches. I've seen one video where, and that's why breathing is a very important topic. There is one video which I saw on YouTube, and he's actually a big YouTuber. And one time he said, you should breathe out underwater only through your nose, just to prolong the breathe out thingy whatsoever. The moment he said that, I blocked it person whatsoever, because it's I'm now very vocal, but it's absolute rubbish. Because forget it. No matter whether it doesn't matter if you're a sprinter or if you're a long distance swimmer, rubbish. Forget about it.
No, I agree. I always talk through what I think the breathing cycle should be. And I think you have more control, if you're going slower, if you exhale through your mouth. So it's how I think of it is you turn your head to breathe, take an inhale, that goes through your mouth. You want as much air as possible, so you get as much air as you possibly can. And then you drop your head in which a lot of people are like, they hold their breath and they take a second, they tense up, and you don't want to do that when you're swimming, especially as you're trying to swim hard, because you're already stressed and you're already tense. And so I tell people to act like they're whistling. And so depending on how much time there is between breaths, say you're breathing every single stroke, that exhale duration may be shortened. But if you're breathing like every 3 or every 5, or you're doing some sort of hypoxic training, you'd want to drop your head down, maybe hold if you have time to hold your breath for a second. And if not, then just slowly exhale like you're whistling to then repeat the cycle. So you're constantly in and out. I think the hard part about the nose, though, is when a lot of kids are taught how at a younger age to blow bubbles, some of the first things they learn is how to blow bubbles out of their nose. And so then it like gets that into their brains that somehow the nose is still involved, which I guess you could exhale out of your nose. But as you know, and like I know from the book, you really want to inhale for that filtration system through the nose, which it doesn't make sense to inhale.
Yeah. You won't get enough air. I mean, a lot of swimmers who started at a young age anyway have a big lung anyway. I mean, I have about 7 liters or something like that. I mean, I've done a lot of tests, and I mean, you use only a bit of it, but we have tendency to have big lungs as a swimmer anyway, because you never get enough air. Like you will not, like you need air. I agree also that the breathing, if like even I sometimes, so when you start off, or when people come with me, I always say to them, look, as soon as your head is on the water, you start to breathe out and get all the air out. So your diaphragm will create the vacuum, and as soon as you turn in, it will some sort of expand, like try to fill up your lungs within no seconds, so you have the biggest chance to fill up your lungs properly again. Because if you don't do it, if you don't have empty lungs, you might end up on the other side with have you rest air in your lungs or filled up, and then you come into the moment you can't really have, you don't have new oxygen anymore, and there even and that is a very intuitive thing. As soon as I come back into the water, I start to breathe out, and then I stop for a moment. I breathe out through my nose, funny enough, and then that arm which is on the other side, I breathe only to the right. That arm which is slowly to finish, I start to breathe out again and let everything go. But I have the power to breathe out the whole thing, or everything which is in my lungs in that short time. If you start out, you might not have that muscle trained that you need to breathe out everything, or you cannot. And that's why I'm saying, as soon as your head goes into the water, you should breathe out. I mean, that is basically it in that sense.
No, I agree that it's important to be able to welcome air in when you have the opportunity, and then you have to prep. But there is definitely a level of help any of the gases provide in your lungs with buoyancy. Like, it doesn't matter if it's oxygen or CO2 or nitrogen. Like, if you keep stuff in your lungs, then you raise a little bit higher in the water, which is a good thing. So that's why it's like, if you're breathing every 3 or 5, it's like, all right, turn your head back down after you take the breath, hold it for a little bit until you've decided, all right, now I'm taking my next breath, and then get rid of it. So it's kind of like you're buoyant, unbuoyant for a little bit, and then back to buoyant by bringing more air in.
But is it something which you can really like train? I mean, we learned it through swimming. I mean, I learned it through, and no one ever came to me and thought, like, the buoyancy, yes, technically, in a technical sense, yes, it makes sense. But I never had a coach to tell me, you need to hold on, for buoyancy, you're higher up. You start naturally doing it anyway at some point. This is just like the intelligence of the swimmer itself. The subconscious intelligence of the swimmer itself, which will adapt to the situation. I don't know.
Well, a lot of how I coach is a lot of how I wasn't. Like, no one ever told me how to breathe, right? Like, I just started breathing in and out of my mouth. I can't even tell you that if someone told me to breathe through my nose, I don't even direction on any of this stuff. And that's where I think, like, a a call like this is really advantageous to people. I still think that there's a lot of people that they have never been taught how to do this. Like, they don't have that conversation. They know when they turn their head to the literal side and they get their head out of the water, they're supposed to breathe. But there's so many clients that I have that hold their air, which all that does is increase your CO2 level, which then tells your brain you need air like right now. So you start panicking. And so there has to be like a flow thing that can make it, which is probably what you're saying with like the intuitiveness of the swimmer. But, you know, for people that are newer and really wanting to enjoy swimming, the breathing cycles like helps it become a meditative sport.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, as I said, again, it's a very individual thing. I mean, there are certain things, certain technical things which are in there also for the breathing. So one thing which is for everyone the same thing. You turn your head and you turn it to the side. You should get air in as much as you can, like fill up your lungs, and you should have time to do that. Then again, if you go more into detail, don't turn your head too early, don't turn your head too late back in. So your head is out of the water, you breathe in. When your head is underwater, you breathe out. Basic thing is, when you breathe in, you should be able to fill up your lungs. When you breathe out, you should empty your lungs completely or to the max which is possible. Yeah. And that, I think that is for everyone. Now you could go more into detail, and there is again, it depends on your goal, on the speed, or like if you're going to go be a sprinter or a long distance swimmer or these other things. And then also there is a question of which is something which I get challenged so often, is the thing of the breathing pattern. You know, what is the best one? I mean, I said it several times on the Olympic Games, on a 1500 meter, even on a 200 meter, see how many people, like there are not a lot of swimmers, especially on the male side. For the women it's a bit different, because also the buoyancy is slightly different because of the physique. Most of the male swimmers will breathe every second time. They only breathe to the right, or they only breathe to the right, left, or they do at the beginning they breathe 3 times, so they're in the rhythm, and then they start to do the breathing every second time, or they switch it up. So they I think it's Whiffen or someone else, he breathes to the right all the time, and then at some point midway he breathes always to the left. And it's that way. But you need to find your pattern, like your personal pattern, and it needs to be sustainable for the distance you swim afterwards. I mean, that is it, I think. I mean, sorry if I jump in. I mean, if you're a sprinter and you can sprint 22:50, but you breathe 3 times on the 50 meter, it's not said that if you don't breathe like Sjöström or Flora Mana do, the whole 50 meter that you're faster. That is not technically or physiology or physically it is faster, but for you it might not apply.
No, I think breathing is kind of like a kick video. It's very dependent on what you're doing, but I do think I always start with the younger kids with training a balanced stroke. And so that normally includes bilateral breathing, them learning to breathe to both sides, so they can learn to rotate to both sides. Like, everything's very even. And then as they progress through swimming, you know, get more into a senior program, that's where you might start seeing people, you know, naturally galloping or naturally leaning towards distance events. Like, they start having different strokes come out, and then it's a matter of like harnessing that technique that they're exhibiting with the goals that they have, because you don't want someone to be, you know, galloping for a 50. Like, that doesn't make sense. So you have the kind of the harder conversations of like, this is where your body is leaning towards, this is what your natural feel is for the water. And, you know, depending on what that is, maybe they don't breathe every 3, maybe they breathe 3 times in a 50, which may be every 7 strokes. Like, it's very variable depending on what they're doing.
That's a good one. That's actually a good one. I bring out another statement, which I just thought about, is the thing is why people think that breathing always to the right is bad or not good, is because you get a mismatch on the stroke itself. But now I'm bringing out the statement I brought it, I think, not with you, but with someone else already, said breathing is one thing, and the stroke technique is another thing.
Mm.
First, the breathing needs to fit into your technique, and not the other way around. You shouldn't build your swimming around the breathing. You should bring the breathing into the swimming technique. So virtually a swimmer starts to swim, and it needs to be symmetric on both sides, and it should be without breathing. And then you fit in what is best for you, what is best for the distance, where you need to breathe. If then every second breathing is in, but the system is not allowed to change. So you should have a high elbow and this body rotation, even if you don't breathe.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Yeah. No, I get what you're saying. I actually like that line. And I do think that when you get into the breathing every other stroke, you do get kind of a short arm and a long arm. And so you have rotation, right? But the amount that you rotate when you breathe is more to get the head out than it is for the strokes that you're non-breathing. So I'm like, this is the sentence I always use with my kids. It's more of like, I want you to train, and you're going to train for a lot longer than you're going to race. So we need to train probably more balanced than we are unbalanced. But you race, and what is the fastest for you may be very different than how you train. So we might have a lot of breathing every 3 through 2 hour practices because it saves the shoulders, keeps the neck from just going one direction. And then when they race, they may actually only breathe to one side because that's the quickest for them. But we don't always want to train the imbalances too much because you just get so much more volume in training.
That makes sense. That is actually another point to look at. I mean, even I know how to swim every third time, and then I can do it. Even sometimes in open water swims, I do it also to look around to see where I am. I can do it, and even my breathing is on both. I would even challenge myself. My breathing on both, on if I do bilateral breathing or I breathe every 6th time or every 8th time or whatever, breathing on both, it's equal. But it's also equal if I only breathe to the right side, and I can also swim only breathing to the left side. It doesn't really matter to me. And that is the state where you need to get to. You need to be able to do everything. And to get there, and there I agree to your saying, or to what you say, is only with bilateral breathing or every 6th time or something like that. Something which is balanced to get there. Even I started off with a bilateral breathing technique, so breathing every 3rd time. Even I did. So to start off with, yes, it makes sense, but afterwards you need to find some sort of what works for you for the distance you want to swim ultimately, I think.
I completely agree.
Good. I mean, let's finish with that. Agreement is always good instead of like being against each other. So if anyone who was listening had any questions or more into depth questions, or actually a topic which he wants us to talk about on another call or another discussion we have, put it into our comments or DM us. We are on Instagram, we are on YouTube. My name, Marcus Martel. This is Abbie Fish, and she's the fish on Instagram and in YouTube, I think. And no, Swim Like a Fish is on YouTube. I like that actually. So in the end, and if you have questions, ask us. We are happy, and like, share, follow, and until another time.
Good. Thank you, Marcus.
Thank you.